Hi, I'm Rob Vanstone, not wearing the customary blue shirt today. I guess that's
Huh.
progress. And I'm here with Murray McCormick. I think we've seen that shirt before.
I
And
didn't think
we are
you'd be
here
wearing a
to
collar.
do the what I'm guessing to be one of the final editions of Rider Rumblings podcast for this year. We're going to keep doing this till after the Grey Cup, but the Rough Riders are obviously not a factor in that. They've already decided the direction in which they are proceeding for 2022, or the direction they're not proceeding in the case of select individuals. So, Murray, just off the top, what did you make of that yesterday?
First off, thank you for doing it quickly. Thank you for not extending this over to the next 2 weeks for needing us all this speculation. The Riders made a decision, whether you agree with it or don't agree with it. They made a decision to retain Jeremy O'Day and Craig Dickinson. I would say they fired Jason Moss, but they didn't renew the contracts of Steven Searles and Travis Murphy. I wonder the difference in wording there, but I guess that's just the way things
No,
are.
one guy had a year left on his contract, the other two did
Yeah.
not.
Okay, hey, that's good. I didn't think of that, Rob. Thank you for pointing me on the straight and narrow on that one. Speaking of 1 year contracts, it's interesting that the riders in O'Day and Dickinson are only signed through 2023, which you and I both said was a good idea. But then when you look at it, what kind of people are they going to get to replace Moz and replace Sorrells and replace Moore based on a 1 year contract? Because you want to have some certainty. You want to have some sort of continuity. And so if you're looking for an offensive coordinator, they usually get 2 year deals. And I don't know what kind of players and what kind of quality they're going to get to fill that hole based on a 1 year deal. Now, we're contradicting ourselves because we both said we signed O'Day and Dickinson or keep retaining them.
But it's not
But when
without
you look at
complication.
yeah, but when you look at the bigger picture, you go, well, who's going to come here for 1 year of an offensive coordinator? Is it going to be some older guy looking for work just to keep things going for another year? Is it going to be a really young guy looking to maybe break in? But there's no way that Craig Dickens can say to him, yeah, but you can get a 2 year deal because you're not going to get a 2 year deal because I only have a 1 year deal. So I don't know how that's going to be an interesting negotiating part on the riders side of how they get quality people to take over these new positions. But I don't know, Rob. It just and that's one of those thoughts you have in the shower in the morning. Hey,
Well,
a 1 year deal. How can they move forward from that with such a short window?
yeah, it wasn't so much a vote of confidence in this regime, but an ultimatum. And the 1 year deal could basically be a 5 game deal if they don't start robustly next year. And there is the advantage, I think, there the upside to having a regime that's on the clock or could be on the clock when you're trying to find an offensive coordinator, etc. Because somebody might look at that as an opportunity, thinking, look, if these guys are out the door, I might be a head coach by August. If it's the right person, they might make that offensive coordinator the head coach because you're going to have somebody on staff that can be elevated. So you there might be a I'm not sure if vulturous is the right word, but somebody might look at it and think, I could become a CFL head coach with the commensurate salary pretty quickly if these guys stagger out of the gate. Or that the same person could be looking for a job this time next year as well. I think there's more downside than upside to this 1 year arrangement in terms of trying to find a staff. In terms of replacing Travis Moore and Steven Sorrells, that's not really a huge deal because those are typically contracts that are renewable year to year to year anyway. But like you said, the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator are generally multi-year positions, and the Rough Riders don't want that person to be out of sync with the head coach and GM for practical purposes in terms of the football operations cap if they do end up cleaning house. And it just doesn't, there's a certain illogic to having your offensive coordinator under contract for a longer duration than your GM or your head coach. I also wonder what effect it might have on their recruitment of the next quarterback here. Would that person, let's just call him Bo Levi Mitchell, want to have some assurance that this is a regime that you can ally yourself with for a longer period, as opposed to being a one and done along with the rest of them? And you could always structure the contract in a manner, say, reminiscent of Zach Collaros' deal, where there's guaranteed money, but not until year 3. But if you're the Rough Riders, I don't think you can give Bo Levi Mitchell that guarantee because you're not sure, based upon the last couple of years, if he could be the guy for year one. So how do you lock yourselves into a guarantee for year three? So it would have to be almost a leap of faith on the part of the quarterback. Thinking, okay, I have confidence in these guys. I think they're going to be around here for 2 or 3 years. This is where I want to go. And you can't have that confidence as a quarterback coming in here, especially when you see what happened to Cody Fajardo under this regime, where they absolutely did a 180 on him with 2 games left in the regular season. I wonder if that too is going to be a factor where you think, okay, in 2021, right before the playoffs, they demote Isaac Harker. 2022, 2 games before the season's over, Cody Fajardo gets relegated, and they don't give Jake Dolagala a look because they want to dress a second global. I don't get that one. And so if you're a quarterback coming in here, I think you have to have serious questions about how receptive this place is to a quarterback in general. And then you factor in the 1-year contracts, and it's another issue as well. I think it's going to be an impediment to getting the people in here that are needed to turn things around.
I would like to think if you're going through the interview process with an offensive coordinator, you might be able to sense if you're hiring a guy who's looking to take over your job if things don't go well. I would like to think you have more of an insight into this person, more of a friendship that realizes he's just doing it in case we mess up again like we did last year. I would hope the interview process would go better than that. I do agree with you, Rob, on that, and we always agree on most things and stuff. That
I disagree.
It isn't. Okay, we'll agree to disagree on it, whether we agree. I think they have put themselves in a bit of a hole with how they're going to get what kind of quality of the people and what kind of quarterback is. And Bo Levi, I think at Bo Levi's age and experience, he's looking for a little longer term deal. He'd want that. And the precedent is there, as you said, with Zach. So I think I don't know how they're going to sell things, and they also have to. Not talking about the football, but I think they also have to sell the fans on what they're doing. And I didn't get a chance to ask Craig that question yesterday because I wanted to say, because I mentioned that, like, how do they sell this to the fans that this is a step forward for the Riders? Because here's another thought I had, Rob, and I was going to throw this at you, and I hope you sound like you're ready to chat. Are the Riders better today than they were yesterday? What do you think? Do they think this move improve them, or does it just maintain the status quo with the hope they can find someone down the road that'll make this miserable season but a distant memory? Are they a better team today than they were at the end of the season? What do you think, Rob?
Well, I would say yes, because thankfully that season's over, so it's not clouding our perspective. We don't have to watch them anymore. But I think they're better because the questions have been answered, and they now have a clear direction, whereas for the last month, there was so much speculation. Now they know who is going to be in charge at the start of the season, and I think they've really come to grips with what they did wrong and what they need to fix for the upcoming year. I asked Jeremy O'Day on Tuesday how much responsibility he accepted, and I was so impressed with his answer. There wasn't any equivocation in that. He basically put it on himself. And he knows that there needs to be a quarterback, and he knows that there needs to be an offensive lineman or an offensive line that's much better. I think my dog is well aware of that by now. Everybody knows it. But I think part of the battle is for them to really understand the plight that they were in. I got the feeling watching this team this year and following it, they never quite realized how bad they were. And even when Craig Dickinson said that point blank after the game against Edmonton, then he walked it back. They never really, they kept hearing what a great group of people they had in the locker room, about all this talent they had and these great weeks of practice. And then they go out in the field and you were hoping there was a decent halftime show, because that's pretty much all there was to watch bring back the Super Dogs. And so I think they finally got it's like they finally realized what everybody's been seeing for the past 2 or 3 months. This is a bad football team in need of massive repairs. And now they're finally acknowledging it. And I think recognition of the problem is one step toward resolving it. I don't think it's like they were in denial. They kept talking about, if we get into the playoffs, we're going to scare some people. Well, there was almost a presumption, I think, at some point that they were somehow going to back into the playoffs via the crossover. And that never materialized, never came close, as it turned out. Now it's all been laid bare, and they understand where they've got to go. And maybe this humbling will make everybody better. I remember when Roy Shivers and Danny Barrett were in this situation entering the 2006 season. Now, it certainly didn't end well for Roy Shivers because he was fired in August of that year. But before doing so, he made a trade with the Hamilton Tiger Cats that brought them not only Kerry Joseph, but Darian Durant. So last time the Riders were in this situation, they got 2 Grey Cup winning quarterbacks in one trade because they realized they needed to they needed to do something major to fix what was a glaring deficiency. And Roy Shivers made that trade. So maybe being under the gun, as Roy Shivers and Danny Barrett were in 2006, will be beneficial to Jeremy O'Day and Craig Dickinson. And then this isn't the time for just tinkering. You need to really overhaul a lot of what you're doing, and maybe there's an answer out there, such as the one Roy Shivers found 16 years ago. Where's the time gone?
I found it interesting that the defense wasn't touched in this sort of purge, but because the defense, maybe they're basing it on the first half of the season, because the second half of the season, the defense wasn't what it was like when it started. And that goes back to that July 8th game when Pete Robertson got hurt and AC Leonard got hurt and Garrett Marino lost his mind and led to the whole other issues and things like that. But defensively, they weren't the best team in the league by any stretch by the closing out of the season. Yet all the defensive guys are, well, they're not. They're most, other than Jason Shivers, who's on has another 1 year left on his contract. The rest of the guys are 1 year contracts. So it'll be interesting to see how many of them come back. Craig says he'd like them all to come back. He'd like to retain them all, and I think that's a sign of loyalty on Craig's behalf. But
doesn't Cody Fajardo wish there'd been that loyalty?
Yeah, exactly, isn't it?
Sorry,
sorry, maybe lose my train of thought here. But I think the defense, they can't let the defense off scot-free here. We've got to say there are issues with defense. I think the linebackers were fine. I think the defensive line was an issue. And the secondary, when your defensive line's not getting any pressure, your secondary looks like the Riders' secondary did. And I don't know how many free agents they have. I would expect there's
Three Down Nation has the whole list up there now.
Oh, did they put it up there? Because one of the things you try to go through and keep track of free agents, but sometimes the team doesn't tell you how long they signed for, so it's a bit of a guessing game with their free agents. But they got to have a lot, because last year was the year of the 1 year contracts, and I think with the opportunity for guaranteed contracts now, maybe there'll be less free agents down the road. But I think you're calling it up now, Rob, aren't you?
Yeah, so go ahead.
Amuse the people with my thoughts. I think one of the things, I know it's not Rider football, but I'm really looking forward to the semifinals this weekend. I think it's going to be a lot of fun and a lot of interest in football. And who would have believed the Tiger Cats would be in a semifinal?
I got the free agent list here. I must be very quick to credit this to Three Down Nation, in particular John Hodge, fellow Jazz fan. Quarterback, Cody Fajardo. Running back, Shaq Cooper, Jamal Morrow. Morrow's a big one. Fullback, James Tuck. Receivers, Mario Alford, Shaq Evans, Jake Hardy, Wesley Lewis, Justin McInnes, Kyron Moore, Mitchell Picton, Duke Williams. Offensive line, Jamal Campbell, Dan Clark, Brendan Labatt, for all it's worth, Josiah St. John, Taryn Vaughn. Defensive line, Charbel DeBeer, Charleston Hughes, Anthony Lanier II, Pete Robertson. Linebacker, Larry Dean, Nigel Harris, Jordan Herdman Reed, Justin Herdman Reed, Gary Johnson Jr., Darnell Sankey. There's a biggie. Defensive back, Jordan Bolio, Blaise Brown, Jeremy Clark, Mike Edom, Nick Marshall, Roland Milligan, Godfrey Onyeka. Kicker, Kari Vedvik. There is a list of free agents, courtesy of 3downnation.com.
Well, you did with that quickly of that group. When I look at immediately, I would like to see them bring Darnell Sankey back. I think he was a huge part of this team as their double nominee for most outstanding player, most outstanding defensive player. I think in a locker room that from the outside didn't appear to have a lot of leadership, I think he provided that leadership. He became a go-to guy, and as much as you can have a go-to guy in the scrum world of sports, he was a guy who provided great insights into the team, and they have to re-sign him. I don't know, Rob. What do they do with Cody? Like, he's a free agent.
Well, that's
do they bring him back with?
They can't bring him back now. Especially
they have to bring him back with a caveat. They have to say, okay, you can come back. You've got to trust your offensive line. You've got to reduce your happy. You got to stop the spinorama into sacks. You've got to be more of a leader. You've got to be less. I'm going to have to say less whiny about when things go badly for you. And that happened. You know what would happen. It's not whiny isn't the right word, but he was honest and frank, and I love it.
Cody got the raw end of the deal here. I don't blame him for saying anything that he did. After everything he'd done for this team for 3 years and playing hurt and playing behind a bad offensive line and taking so much of an inordinate amount of criticism, and then with 2 weeks left in the season, right out of the blue, they demote him. That was a slap in the face. They humiliated him, and Cody, being as honest as he was, uh, spoke in those terms. It didn't use that term precisely, but you could tell it stung. I don't blame him a bit. There's no way Cody Fajardo's back. The only way Cody Fajardo could be back is if they'd cleaned house.
Yeah.
But I mean, you've got the same head coach and same general manager under whom that happened. And you can't just say to a quarterback, "Don't have happy feet." It's human nature. And if you're in the pocket and you're wary of the offensive line and you have that accumulated baggage, you're going to be uneasy in the pocket. Not unlike Tom Brady has been a couple of times when the Tampa Bay offensive line has been bad. Not unlike Joe Burrow, not unlike Matt Ryan. These are three quarterbacks who've been in Super Bowls, and we've seen evidence lately of poor protection affecting their composure in the pocket. So Cody Fajardo certainly shouldn't be immune from that, and he certainly shouldn't be immune from criticism. But the amount that he received was inordinate, and I think the treatment that he received from the organization was just, they pulled the rug out from under him late in the year, and I think he needs a fresh start, because I don't think there's a significant amount of or a huge enough significant amount enough portion of the fan base that's going to embrace him. I think they have to be able to sell something new as well. They can't sell that anymore. I mean, I get the question so often, what does this mean for Cody Fajardo? I think there's a better chance of Tino Sinceri quarterbacking the Rough Riders next year. And I say that with no disrespect intended for Cody. Both parties need a divorce from one another here.
But is there someone out there? We talk about Bo Levi Mitchell, and we don't know who I haven't looked at the other free agent quarterbacks, and that'll come up. Is there a replacement? Are the Riders kind of going to go evaluate all of the different positions, all the quarterback positions, to say, well, if Bo Levi doesn't want us, we've only got one experienced guy, and that's got to be Cody. He's got to come back, and they've got to go maybe begging, say, come back. And that last year was a sign of what we had to do. We're looking for a spark for the offense. We were looking to change things. The only way you can really do that in a must-win game is that quarterback. Because if you change the defensive tackle, it doesn't make any difference. Even back Charleston Hughes, it doesn't do anything. So maybe they're in a spot where they can't afford. They have to sign Cody, which you and I both know is pretty rare. But they put that
possibility exists.
But they've painted themselves into a corner, because I don't think Mason Fine isn't the answer. He showed some flashes, but he showed in that last game against Calgary's backup. So I think he'll make a fine backup in the CFL. Play well. And Jake Delegala showed a little bit against Toronto. They also showed the fact that they didn't want to take Cody off the roster, and being Jake on the roster tells me something. They don't have any confidence in Jake, or they really wanted to win this last meaningless game, and they didn't want to give Jake a chance.
Get a look at him. What other purpose is there for that last game, except to look at players for next year? Especially if I think they certainly have to have a pretty strong suspicion by then that they were going to be back. Why didn't they use that as a tool to evaluate Jake Delegala? It wouldn't provide all the answers, but maybe it would have provided a bit of hope. Now we all know that Tommy Stevens on 2 plays nearly rushed for more yardage than Mason Fine threw for, and they didn't get a look at Levi Lewis. They didn't get a look at Jake Delegala. So what was the purpose of that last game? I should have gone to the Pats game. The Pats Everett game was outstanding. So they can't go back to Cody. And I think the world of Cody Fajardo as a person. I think he's been unduly maligned as a quarterback, but they just cannot go in that direction again, because they need to radiate newness and need to radiate a change. And if they just go back to Cody, I think it would be a sign of capitulation on their part too. And it's basically tantamount to an admission of failure, that they couldn't recruit or find or trade for a quarterback who was superior to the one that they benched with 2 weeks left in the regular season this year. They might as well fire everybody on the spot right then, if that's the best they can do, because it'll be embarrassing. And maybe they deserve that embarrassment after what happened to Cody.
I don't mean to show you.
Man, that bugs me.
Oh, I know. I'll put you in a little better mood here. They released the CFL All-Stars today. Now, Rob.
Darnell Sankey. Any other riders?
Just Keon Schaefer-Baker. It looks like on my quick examination here.
Well, this is the West All-Stars today, right?
West All-Stars, yeah. So I'm just looking quickly here. Sorry, folks. Bear with me for a second.
Keon Schaefer-Baker, there's another guy. Feed him the football until he gets 1,000 yards on Saturday. He got 25 yards on 5 catches. Now, they targeted him 10 times, but they should have made sure, if nothing else, on Saturday, Keon Schaefer-Baker comes out of the season with 1,000 yards. This is a team that needs good news stories. Why couldn't they find a way? If you got to throw him 20 passes for 3 or 4 yards a pop, do it. Get him his 1,000 yards.
Schaefer Baker is the only All-Star. Interesting that Mario Alford didn't get the special team All-Star, but he got the West Division nominee for special teams player.
Who is the special teams?
Janarian Grant. Remember
Yeah,
Winnipeg?
How
He
did
had a
that
really
happen?
good.
Yeah, but Mario Alford's a division finalist. He had 4 kick return touchdowns.
Yeah, that's weird. That's make sure I got it right. Special teams. Yeah, it was.
My goodness.
Interesting. Yeah, and so that's an interesting one. Lucius Purefoy, a former rider, got the All-Star nod at safety, which was a tough choice for me. I remember doing that. I'm just looking through.
How does Janarian Grant get best kick returner? Oh my goodness.
That's a strange one there.
Blame the media for that one.
Exactly. No, I'm trying to remember. The fans had a percentage in this vote, I thought.
Oh, that must be
it. Powered by.
But that's a sign, though, when you look at a team out of 5 teams in the West Division, they had 2 All-Stars. I mean, and they should have had 3. Let's give them that. But if you look at this roster, I think it says a lot, too. Like, I look at this roster, I don't see a lot of players who should be in the category of untouchable. Nobody on the offensive line, absolutely nobody. I hope Dan Clark can come back and have a good year. I think that's worth considering, but he's going to be 35 next season. So you can't think that is your absolute linchpin anymore. But I still think he's better than anybody else they're going to get. And he's also the kind of leader they need. The quarterback isn't untouchable. Jamal Morrow is a free agent, and bringing him back would be advisable, but I'm not sure that Frankie Hickson isn't a better back. None of the receivers are untouchable except for Kean Schaefer Baker. Yeah. He may entertain NFL options.
No, he's signed through 23.
But he can still use the NFL window, right?
But I think
defensive line, not a soul on that defensive line is untouchable. Now, Pete Robertson, after the injury, wasn't the same player. AC Leonard was playing hurt for a significant portion of the season. He's still under contract for next year, but that's not a $200,000 player anymore. They're going to have to rework that deal. Linebackers, the only untouchable there is Darnell Sankey. Larry Dean, as well as he played this year, is still well over 30, and Derek Moncrief, most of the big plays he made were in the first half of the year. Secondary, nobody's untouchable. So how many foundational players do they actually have right now?
It's Brett Lother untouchable.
You can count and Brett Lother's his numbers are. I mean, everybody really likes Brett Lother as a person, and I am one of them. But if you look at the numbers, they're not that impressive. Let me call them up here. Go ahead while I ramble here.
I think you touched upon Brett as a person. He did he does so many things in the community. He was such the point man on the Touchdown Atlantic and I know you don't really see this much, but boy, he was the point guy on the strike.
But here we go. Brett Lother, 82% of his field goals. Now, once upon a time, 82% was very good. Yeah. But in this case, it puts him in the bottom third of the league. Here's the percentages. Sean White, 92.3. Yeah. Seth Small, 90.7. Rennie Paredes did his typical 90. David Cote, 86.3. Lewis Ward, 86. Sergio Castillo, 84.1. 7th in the league, Brett Lother, 82.0. Mark Leggio actually had a better percentage, 82.1. Boris Beatty, 78.2. So the only kicker in the league that had a lower percentage, only regular kicker in the league that had a lower percentage than Brett Lother on field goal attempts was Boris Beatty. So,
but Brett likes to point out who had made the most and the longest field goals. Like he says, a lot of these guys are going to. Lewis Ward had that record-setting.
But what about the 2 field goals against Edmonton that were eminently makeable?
Yeah,
right.
No defending.
I'm not sitting here dumping all over Brett Lother. I certainly advocate him being the kicker for a long time, but that's 2 years in a row now. The numbers haven't been what they were in his first year when he hit an even 90 and was terrific.
Yeah. But he's signed through 2020.
Brett Lother, under 40 yards, 28 for 31, 40 plus, 13 for 19. So much better than Boris Beatty, 15 for 26. But Mark Leggio, 11 for 15. Sergio Castillo, 14 for 20. Lewis Ward, 11 for 17. So that Lother is better than him. David Cote, 16 for 20 out of above 40 yards. Rennie Paredes, 14 for 19. So pretty much comparable to Lother. Seth Small, 10 for 13. better percentage, fewer kicks. But he's no longer among the upper crust in terms of accuracy from that range either. Average field goal made 34.7. That appears to be middling based upon a cursory inspection of the stats. So
but
Brent Lothar can improve too.
He's the least of the Riders concerned.
No,
I'm going to have to tell you people, you're going to make people laugh, Rob, because your forehead just took over the whole screen when you were reading those numbers. So it's pretty
well, we can have a forehead contest here.
Yeah, I think you had a little more. It's pretty funny. Sorry, but I still think he's
old SCTV. There's some John Candy going on here.
Yeah. But overall, as you said, the Riders they kind of maintain status quo with some shakeups, and we'll see what it does for the rest of the next 6 weeks, because I have a feeling it's going to be pretty quiet over there for a while. I think they're going to be recovering from the Grey Cup and the Grey Cup Festival. And
well, it can't be too quiet. They've got a coaching staff to fill out, and they also have an off season to consider. And this is the other thing: free agency doesn't happen until February, and they want to sell season tickets before then. But who do they have to hang it on? So I think they need a bit of a marquee presence. And Arash Madani talked about this on CKRM on the Sports Cage a while back, about how they need to get Bo Levi Mitchell not only as a quarterback, but as someone who's going to sell this team to the public over the course of the offseason. And by mid-February, a lot of that offseason is gone. And we're close. By February, we're closer to the regular season starting than we are, to it ending. So would there be something to be said for, hey, Calgary, here's a 4th round draft choice. Give us the rights to Bo Levi Mitchell so that we have exclusive negotiating rights through mid-February. Then you make the deal, and then you've got his rights, and then you come to a contractual arrangement in advance of free agency, thereby allowing you to market him during the offseason.
That's he the answer, Rob? Is he?
Who else is? Who else is?
I know, but the thing, don't forget, he got benched too. But he got benched a lot earlier this season.
He got benched just by playing behind a better offensive line. But they put themselves in a situation where they really can't be too choosy right now. And they also need to consider the marketing aspects of what they do. And what other quarterback who is out there or might be out there has the cachet, the Bo Levi Mitchell? The quick answer is nobody. They've got to make that deal, get his rights, and sell Bo Levi Mitchell to the people of Saskatchewan and sell their team. Because right now they have nothing really that's very marketable at the same time that they are facing their most crucial selling season. All that work is done during the off season, and they want to have that bankable money by the time training camp starts, and they don't want to be as reliant on walk-up crowds. So they've also got to resolve the quarterback situation. So one Dickinson can talk to the other Dickinson. Jeremy O'Day can talk to whomever and say, okay, can talk to Huff. What's it going to take? Do you want a 4th? Do you want a 5th? Give us the rights to him, and then you can talk to Bo Levi Mitchell, get a deal done right before Christmas if you can, and sell.
Okay, but none of that's going to happen.
He's got something left in the tank.
None of that's going to happen until at least after the Grey Cup.
Oh, for sure,
because there's not. It's not technically a moratorium, but there's kind of a period. You have to approach teams to say if you can talk to this guy or this guy, which you have to do. But I don't think you're going to be able to call up Huff and say that, can we do this now? Because they're a little busy right now.
No, I'm not talking right now, but once the Grey Cup's over,
come December-ish.
We've got to run. Murray, thank you so much.
I'll walk quickly.
While you're going to run, I'm going to go for a bike ride. If you enjoyed the podcast, please leave a review and a 5-star rating. It helps us grow the podcast. You can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to send us a question, you can email me at rvanstone@postmedia.com, and we'll read it on the show. You can follow me on Twitter at Rob Vanstone or Murray at MurrayLP. Murr, thank you so much. We'll do this again next week and the week after, and for an indeterminate period following that. And thank you so much for being with us, and hope you enjoyed our ranting and raving and whatever pontificating.
Rob ranting.
I got really fired up today. Thanks, Murr. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Okay.